Over the past 6 months, we have witnessed some of the darkest moments in the history of mankind, and witnessed some of the worst of what human beings are capable of. Every day, we collectively watch in horror as an apartheid state carries out war crime after war crime against a defenseless population with almost complete immunity from the international community, and with the near total support of Western leaders who continue to funnel money and weapons to Israel. Every day, images of war crimes are beamed into our smartphones. The screams of babies, the wails of widows, and the cries of fathers carrying their deceased children ring through our ears. Tens of thousands of people have already been slaughtered, and officials in Washington simply repeat the same mantra that Israel has a right to defend itself, even as it commits clear war crimes in destroying schools, hospitals, and mosques, deliberately starving a population under its control and bombing heavily populated civilian areas. But not only is every war crime effectively signed off by Washington, what Israel is doing in Gaza and beyond is standard American foreign policy when it comes to US wars. The Israeli military has repeatedly used banned white phosphorus weapons in Gaza, burning down houses and melting people's skin to the bone. Yet, the United States has also admitted to using the same weapons in Syria and in Iraq, and other chemical weapons in Fallujah. Even to this day, hospitals in Fallujah report a 2,200% increase in leukemia rates and a 740% spike in the number of brain tumors in children. Deliberate Israeli airstrikes have destroyed or damaged every single hospital in Gaza. But the United States has a very long history of targeting hospitals itself, including El Salvador, Yugoslavia, Grenada, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Cambodia, and Laos. And in Syria in 2017, the US dropped white phosphorus munitions directly on Raqqa Hospital, killing at least 30 civilians. Food supplies in Gaza right now are desperately low, with 2/3 of households currently limited to only one meal per day. The Israeli government is refusing to allow aid convoys into Gaza as part of its illegal blockade, leaving its residents to starve who are 50% under the age of 18. Yet, US sanctions are deliberately crafted to produce the same result and have led to shortages of food in targeted countries such as Iran and Venezuela, and during the Iraq War to topple Saddam Hussein. Over 300,000 children died as a result of those sanctions. And let's not forget when Madeleine Albright said it was all worth it. Meanwhile, a released US government document explicitly states that their Cuba sanctions are meant to decrease monetary and real wages, to bring about hunger, desperation, and in the end, the overthrow of the government. We should rightly be shocked at barbaric Israeli treatment of Palestinian prisoners, which has included zip-tying limbs so tightly that they have been needed to be amputated. But we should also remember what the US did in Abu Ghraib in torturing detainees and continues to do so in Guantanamo Bay. And while we can watch ghastly videos of IDF atrocities daily, are they really so different to the collateral murder video released by WikiLeaks in 2010 that showed US forces massacring Iraqi civilians, including 2 journalists? A crime for which no one has yet to be charged, while Julian Assange remains languishing in a British prison for exposing that crime. To be clear, what Israel is doing in Gaza is horrific and amounts to genocide. But this is far from the first time this has happened. Israeli terrorism is standard US foreign policy. What Israel is doing in Gaza is just an outward expression of what the United States has done for decades to the global South. Since the end of World War II, the United States has dominated the world, overthrowing governments left, right, and center, crushing movements for national liberation, and propping up brutal dictatorships across the planet. Israel has been a key outpost of US power in the Middle East, but that power is slipping. After defeats and fiascos in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine, and beyond, and as nations like China rise, American influence is waning, And what the war in Gaza has done has only exposed the moral depravity of the so-called rules-based international order, as the US and other Western powers make themselves look foolish, carrying water for a genocide while still trying to present themselves as the arbiters of morality on the world stage. Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, but so is President Joe Biden, Chancellor Scholz, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and every single one of the Western leaders backing Israel. What Israel is doing is rooted in a standard Western policy that needs to be addressed in our own countries. Yes, Zionism is the problem, but really it's only part of the problem. But the overriding issue here is Western imperialism that creates this kind of ideology. And fortunately, we are seeing the beginnings of a moral awakening. The seeds that have been planted are now sprouting into a global movement. Tens of millions of people around the world have come out into the streets for Palestine. Students across college campuses in this country are occupying their universities, demanding their campuses divest from Israel, and weapons manufacturers that are building the bombs Israel is using to drop on Gaza. We are shutting down weapons companies that supply the apartheid regime with arms, like Palestine Action is doing in the UK. We are occupying the offices of our elected officials, and we are protesting on college campuses around the world. And while many of Palestine's neighbors quietly assist Israel in its attack, Yemen, the poorest country in the Middle East, has enforced a Red Sea maritime blockade of Israeli ships. People have broken through the fog of war and see this for what it is, but we cannot rely on our elected officials to stop any of this. That's because Israeli barbarity was made right here and perfected here in America in the first place.